G'day and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our weekly live Q&A. Tonight we are fortunate enough to be speaking with Ben Costa from Wonderbar Stock Dogs.
Ben will be picking who he thinks has asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro Plus, high energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Hey Ben, how are you going?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, thanks mate. Yourself?
Yeah, really good.
Big day mate, or nice easy one in the office?
Not too bad today. We knocked off fairly decent, but yesterday and the last couple of days have been pretty big with shearing going on.
So to start off, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, righto. Well, I work on a property here between Yass and Burrawa called Brooklands. It's for a Sydney businessman, Rob Purvis. He's got a couple of places, this place and then another place over at Canberra. Between the two, we run a bit over 8,000 ewes, first cross ewes, and 500-600 head of cattle between the two places. So it keeps us busy. He's got a fella over there as well, and then I've got a young fella that works here with me. Like I said before, I think at the moment I've got about 16 dogs. Ranging from fully trained dogs to younger dogs. They do a lot of work here, obviously. It's not full year round, but when it is busy shearing, crutching, weaning lambs and stuff, it's pretty hectic. It gets very big days, and so I sort of need a pretty big team, as well as giving young dogs a go while we're at it. I've been trialing. I think 2014 was my first year. Sort of got into it. I was working at Romani Pastoral Company then. Andrew King sort of got me into trialing. He gave me Lucy as a little 8-week-old pup and said, "There you go, have a crack with her." So before that, I only really had cattle dogs. I'd worked on a couple of cattle places, horse and dogs, and so I hadn't really got into the sheepdog industry much. So Andrew helped me get into that, and that's where we started trialing, and we're still pretty addicted to it now.
How many times has Andrew asked for Lucy back?
Yes, he always says that was his biggest regret, giving me Lucy. I'm not really sure why he didn't like her as a pup, but her first trial, she was only 8 months old, and she won the Encourage at Wagga, so she started off pretty well.
No wonder she's your favourite, mate. She's your kickoff.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell us a bit, mate, what's the country you're working on like, and does it require a certain style or type of dog?
Yeah, definitely, Dan. It's not, I wouldn't say it's hilly. We've got a lot of rocky country, little rocky hills, little rocky knobs, and so the sheep have got plenty of places to hide. Few scrubby patches, but not too much. We've got all laneways here, so it's fairly good. I'll usually go out when we're busy. I'll go out and help muster, and then I'll usually get the young bloke just to bring them down the lanes. Once we've got them in the laneways, it's pretty much straight to the yards. But some of the paddocks out the back, that's where Jock and them, them real paddocky type of dogs come in play that can get up in the scrub, and you'll be cruising along on the bike, and then you look out and there's a mob pissing off into the scrub, and but the dogs have got it down pat now. The dogs usually know when that's going to happen, and they're usually there before it happens, so it's good.
We'll get into Jock a bit later there, but you've mentioned the young bloke that helps you a few times there. How obviously, you look like some kind of mentor to him at work, and how's that working with you and him, and tell us a bit about that relationship.
Yeah, mate, it's unreal. He's I've had another two. I've been here nearly 5 years, and I've had two other people working for me, young people, and they were really good. Didn't have any dogs. Louis, fellow that works for me now, is the first fellow that's actually had dogs. And he doesn't have much. When he came here, he only had an old bitch she was actually really good. She surprised me. She worked the paddock really well. She wasn't much chopping the yards, but he's got it going pretty well, and he loves it. We knock off work we knock off work sometimes, and we'll go down, and he'll be like, "Oh, are we working dogs this afternoon?" I'm like, "Yeah, mate." So yeah, it's really good. I gave him a young dog that I sort of started, and he's gone on with it, and he's done a really good job. I won't say too much about him because he's probably listening and he'll get a big head. But no, he's really good. It's actually really good to be able to send someone off and go and do a job. Like I said, the previous workers, they didn't have dogs, so I'd have to go and muster, get them in, and then they'd head down the lane. And then if lambs got through the fence or something, they'd ring me up, Ben, there's lambs in the paddock, I need you to come and help me. Whereas Louis pretty self-sufficient. He's he's really good. I hope he hangs around for a little bit.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. Sounds like it takes a bit of load off your shoulders, which is always good.
Yeah, definitely. And he's pretty keen. He's very keen on the dogs. He's got another young pup off me, and he's got another pup off someone else. And he's getting really handy at it actually, and he's looking forward to start trialing. So we'll probably see him about soon.
Good thing he's getting handy at it. It means you're doing something right.
That's it.
So where did your passion for working dogs come from?
I guess I've always been around dogs. When I was a kid, my family always had dogs. You know, we never got right into it. It was always just go back, fetch them up, you know, bring them in the bloody yards and go at it. But I guess it really started, like I said before, when I went to Romani. I never really done any training or anything like that. I just took a dog to work, get the job done. Whereas once I went to Romani, I realised I didn't have the team for it, so I had to soon start getting dogs in and and start training them properly and using commands and all that sort of stuff. So I guess that's when, and I guess when I started winning a few trials, I guess that's when it really hit me to get better and get my dogs better.
We'll touch on trialing a bit later. And you mentioned before like a couple of your different jobs and when lambs were getting out. How do you use your dogs in day to day?
Yeah, mate. Always. They're always a big backstop here. Like we'll go out in the paddock, send them out. I try and do a little bit of the mustering on the buggy or the ute straight away. You know, just head around the outside and then go from there. And then the dogs are doing the rest. But yeah, same thing. Paddock. If lambs get through a fence, they'll jump a fence. They'll bring them back in, and then bring them into the yards and do all the hard yards in the yards. Usually penning up or drenching. You know, packing a race. My dogs aren't world beaters, but they get the job done. And the biggest thing for me with my dogs, I guess, is I don't have. You talk to some people and they'll have a paddock team and then a yard team. I won't have a dog here unless it does all three, which is paddock, yard, and they've got to be strong enough to work cattle. I rely on my dogs a lot.
It gives you more time on the buggy, mate.
Exactly.
So tell us a bit about your current team.
At the moment I've sort of got the fully broke team. Jock, Lucy, Chip's getting up there. He's out of test by Cookie and Bill Luffs. He's starting to become really handy. Paddock, and then in the yards he'll get in and mix it in the yards as well. Lockerbie Fred, I got him off Fred and Catherine as a pup. He's a trooper Emily dog, and he's a workhorse. He's if I need to get a job done, it's grab him out of the cage and go and do it. It used to be old Wes. Old Wes is the old workhorse that I had when I was at Romani, and he was the go-to. But now I'm trying to. See, he broke his leg a month ago or a couple of months ago, so he's only used very less now, so he gets to retire a bit.
Wes is a champion, mate.
Yes, he is, and he's he was a great old dog, and I don't think I'm going to be able to replace him, to be honest. But I've got a few young ones coming through that are stepping up, and then pretty much just got a few pups coming up up the ranks to fill in a few holes.
Question here from Kerrod Wild. What is your best dog and why?
Everyone always asks me what my best dog is, and I don't really have a best dog. It depends on the job. Like I said, all my dogs are pretty all round. But you know, like I said, if it's in the paddock, natural ability that I'm mustering a mob of ewes and lambs, and they get up in the scrub, and I need that natural ability to bring them out. Well, Jock's my go-to because he'll just go and sniff them out, find them, bring them down. Tess is a jock, one of my jock daughters. She's just a really handy work dog. She's a terrible trial dog. I take her all the time, but she always bloody grabs one on the head or does something stupid and misses on a final. But she's, you know, when it comes to breaking in weaners and cows and calves and stuff, she's sort of the go-to for that. I'd have to say, as an Jock's probably the best dog I've got, but as an up and coming young dog, Fred would be ticking all the boxes. He's been very tough to train. He's got a very hard head, which is probably why I get on with him, because he can take a bit of a flogging every now and again. But yeah, he's been a bit pushy in the paddock, but he's starting to settle down on that really well, and he'll naturally lay down when we get to a gate or something, and then, like I said, in the yards, Dorset Rams, he'll just punch him through the race. So yeah, he's becoming very handy.
Question here from Karen Higgins. You mentioned you started with cattle dogs. Have you always wondered what has happened to the cattle dog? Are they only used now for work? And if so, where, and not trialing?
Yeah, so the cattle dogs that I started with, I had a couple of short-haired border collies off Murray Wilkinson up at Elliston, and they were very good in the paddock on cattle, obviously. They were very good in the paddock on sheep, but as soon as I got in a yard, they just bloody alligators. And they didn't want to be in the tight spots. Like a lot of dogs now, you know, they want to be in the tight spots and they love it. But I found that the dogs I had just didn't really like them tight spots, and so I just never put them in the yards. There is still a lot of people like Murray still uses his cattle dogs day to day because that's all he does. He's got cattle. Oh, they've got a few sheep now, but he uses mainly his cattle dogs just for cattle in the paddock. So, and same thing with trialing. Like I said, Tess is a really good work dog. She's really good on sheep. She's really good in the yards on sheep, big top knot and stuff. But yeah, she always brings it undone in a trial because she'll grab the face of one and bloody try and rip it off. So, which is not usually allowed these days.
And you've spoken there about your experience with collies and the dogs you had. Why did you move to Kelpies?
Yeah, so I guess I've always liked the Kelpie. Collies, you know, they were the cattle dogs. When I was working cattle all the time, they were the go-to. They real hard bite. But I've tried collies since, and I've never got on with them. I don't know. I don't know if I've tried. I may not have tried the right ones, but the ones I have tried haven't handled my pressure. Whereas I've found the Kelpies handle my pressure a lot better, and I just find the Kelpies a bit more of an all-round dog. You know, you can go and muster in the paddock, and you can put them in the yards, and they'll back and bark all day, and you know, they love them tight spots. Whereas, you know, and I'm not saying that there's probably people out there with collies that are cursing me now, and I'm not saying that they can't do it. It's just that's what suited me better, the Kelpies, and that's what I ran with.
Question here from Chris Egan. I noticed you use your dogs for absolutely anything in work and trial at a really high standard. You don't seem to follow or concentrate on a specific line. To maintain that consistent high level working ability you have, do you just look at a dog or bitch you like and decide to use it in your breeding, or do you look further back in their breeding and see how it will complement your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have stuck to similar lines. I was thinking about that before. a lot of my lines in my dogs go back to Yalleroy Toss and Louis of Jake Nowlands. I've got a lot of Louis blood and a lot of Toss blood in my dogs. You know, I've got a little bit of Capri in there, obviously, as a bit of an outcross. But yeah, a lot of my stuff, like Lucy's by Banger, which is by Toss. Jocks by Tosca, which is by Toss. And then you know, Tess is out of a Louis bitch, and yeah. So, and I guess I've just found, and that's what I'm running with at the moment. That's what I've sort of, you know, obviously I've bred a few by Fred. Same thing, that Coogee line, the Trooper of Andrew King's. I've got a bit of that blood. So yeah, it's probably yeah, they're probably the lines that I look for. And but you do have to be careful, and that's why I do like seeing other dogs and think, gee, I need a bit of an outcross there. Let's bring that in and see how it goes. I've just recently used Tundabadi Grub of Rod Cavils down south, and I was sort of umming and ahhing because none of the bloodlines sort of lined up with mine. But I've got he's probably 6-month-old pup there now out of a jock bitch, and he's one of the better pups I've got. So you know, that's something that I'll probably explore. But yeah, I do. Anne Moy, I'm always talking to her, and she's always sending me these breeding certificates. And God bless her, because she just does them. Yeah, you ask her for one, and it's there. Like, so yeah, I do look at breeding a lot, especially going back. And everything these days either goes back to Toss or something in Capri, and even Jock, he goes back to a bit of that Rihanna Karawara stuff. So yeah, it's always interesting.
What are you looking at when you're going to outside dogs? Have you got a type or a style that you're looking for within the dogs?
I just like the big, bold types. You know, I like leggy, you know, something that'll travel pretty well. And just, you know, yeah, big buff heads, tough, that can take a bit of a beating. Not by me, by the sheep, obviously.
How big of a buffy head again, mate? Yeah, the circumference was pretty. Yeah.
Dogs with heads like mine.
So you obviously breed a few pups. What do you like about breeding?
I guess I like breeding my own. I haven't sort of bought in many pups. Well, I haven't really bought a pup off anyone for a long time. I've got a few sire pups coming in that have used either Jock or Fred. But I just like, obviously, you know, and I don't breed to sell the pups. I breed for my own. I usually keep 2 or 3 out of every litter if I can, and try them. But yeah, I quite like it. I like seeing what matches up and what doesn't work and what does work. You know, my dogs probably don't suit everyone, but I'm starting to see now in the last 12 months. I'm sort of breeding what I like and what gets on with me, and I'm finding myself getting to the point. You know, 2 or 3 years ago, I was breeding dogs, and you get them to sort of that 12 months of age, 10 or 12 months, and it was an easy decision to say, well, I like that one, I don't like that one, I'll move that one on, I'll give that to a mate or whatever. Whereas now, I'll get, you know, half a dozen dogs the same sort of age, and I'll be like, shit, which one am I going to sell? Because I like them all. So, yeah, I guess it's rewarding, I guess, when you do, you know, when you look at a pup and it's 6 or 7 weeks old and you put it on sheep and it goes straight to work, and you're like, shit, yeah, this is what I want. So yeah, I enjoy it.
Question from Nikki West: how do you go about picking a pup?
Biggest thing for me is temperament. I can't handle a pup, and a pup can't handle me if it's got a bit of a softer temperament. A lot of people like that because they're a bit more biddable and a bit more probably trainable. But yeah, I usually go for that standout pup that stands up, and you walk in there and it's in your face, and not stupid, but it's in your face and it's bold, and you might stomp your foot near it or something, and it doesn't react. That's usually the pup that I look for. Yeah.
Has that changed for you at all?
Not really, Dan. I've always looked for that. Yeah, from the early days, I've always looked for that. So, and obviously, because I guess I'm pretty lucky with the bitches that I've got. Tess and Ruby and Lucy, they always seem to switch on. Like 6, 7, 8 weeks old, they're all, you put 8 pups down and the whole 8 are working. So that plays on my mind sometimes, because you see one and it breaks a bit more, or it walks in a bit harder, and you're like, oh, So yeah, I do a lot. I do a lot of research to pick my pups these days.
Cool, mate. We're looking away a bit because we've got a stack of questions, so we're just trying to get them to all filter in with the flow of the conversation, mate. So as we keep going, what advice do you give to anyone that wants to purchase their first dog or a pup?
Oh, mate, like I said, do your research. Definitely research the parents. Don't just go and buy a pup and say, oh, it's from good working parents. Go out there and if available, go and see the parents working. I'm always telling people to buy pups off me, to come out and have a look at the parents, and other siblings, older litters or whatever. But yeah, definitely do your research. Look at the bloodlines. See if the bloodlines are going to work for you. Talk to the person that's selling them. If you're wanting a softer type dog, definitely don't go and buy a litter of pups that are by really hard parents, or vice versa. So yeah, really do the research.
Are there any particular traits you'd like to put into your line moving forward?
I've probably, because I've gone that bigger, bolder, upright, stronger dog, I do lack a bit of cover in my dogs. I've got it in, that's the reason I put Tess to Cookie of Bill Luff's, to try and get that bit of cover and a bit more footwork. And it's probably why I'm using Fred a lot now. He hasn't got much come forward, but his footwork is really good. So I guess, trying to get that bit of footwork and bit of, distance and stuff, but it's really hard because, you go and start putting that in, and then you get a dog and then you want it to come forward and it's got no come forward. So it's a bit of a juggling act to, we all want that perfect dog, but getting it's very hard.
That's right. My question from Ollie Hansen: what do you know now about dogs that you wish you knew when you started?
Oh, mate, that's an open-ended book, I think. Yeah, no, it's.
Is there something that stands out?
I guess trainability. Like I said, when I first started, when I was a young kid, all my dad ever said was go back and fetch them up. But there's so much to it now. Just recently I've started using the whistle, Logan whistles that you guys sell, and I've found that to be a lot better. I still yell at my dogs, but I've noticed I calm down a bit more if I use the whistle.
Yeah.
So yeah, trainability. A dog. It's so there's so much you can do with a dog these days. Just back in the day where it's go back and fetch them up. Like, I get dogs now to where you can step them. You can pretty much put them on a 10-cent piece where you want them. So yeah, it's quite interesting on that side.
Question here from Tim Hall. How often do you like to show a pup sheep, and at what age do you first introduce it to stock? For him, he loves putting them on 1 or 2 sheep pretty young and just sitting back and watching the instinct come out.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. Like I said before, I put my pups on as soon as I can, as soon as they're starting to switch on, which sometimes is 6, 7, 8 weeks old. I'll put them on, usually just in a confined yard, not too big, where the sheep can't get too much. And if I usually put 2 or 3 in there, but obviously when you work dog sheep, they're pretty sticky and they don't move much. So I find if you put 1 sheep in there, it moves around a lot more, which creates the movement for the pup. And that's when you get the pups moving around really good.
Another question here from James Stevens. How do you work on getting a long cast?
I don't train much cast because I'm bloody useless at it. But I've sort of been, I've spoke to people in the past, and I find, casting a dog, start small and work your way out is the best thing. Start small, stand out to a point so that you can push your dog out further. And then stopping your dog when it starts coming in, walking out again, then pushing it out further again. I find that works pretty well. But I think, you see Gary White and all them, and, they just got that natural, and I guess they probably train a bit into them too, but, you do get your natural casting dogs, definitely.
How do you, question here from Nat Grimmer, how do you personally get a dog or pup with too much eye to free up?
Just keep it moving. I've had Fred was a good example, and I've got a mate that's bought a Fred pup here not long ago, and he's very sticky. And you just got to keep moving. Like, he'll sit there and he'll be like, "Oh, look at this! It's bloody real stylish, and it's it's doing this and it's doing that." And it's like, yeah, but you're going to create it to stay sticky. So yeah, I just hunt them around and keep them on very flighty sheep so that it creates movement. Otherwise, you can. And like I said, Fred was very sticky as a pup, and I never thought I'd get it out of him. But he's freed up quite well now, and you got to keep them moving. As good as it looks, stalking and doing all that. You got to keep hunting them out. Yeah.
Another question here, Carl Schubert. How do you go with strength on dogs going from sheep to cattle, being trade cattle or cows and calves?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I try and breed for it a bit. Jock's, I've always bred to him for that strength. He doesn't usually need to bite the cattle. He'll usually just keep walking in, which I think is strength. When a dog gets in there and bites and bites and bites and bites, that's not necessarily strength. But yeah, like I said, I usually have more trouble with I've got to usually muzzle dogs, loading trade lambs or something like that, because they've got that bit of bite. But I like to have that bit of bite when you need it on cattle.
So how much time do you actually put into training?
More and more now. I never used to. I used to just, get them to 12 months old, take them to work, chuck them in the deep end, yell at them, curse them, do all that stuff. But, and it's probably since, I've started, working dogs, with mates, and, you get there and you yarn about it, and you say, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. So I guess, more and more these days, especially with Louis here, we probably try and work pups, 2 or 3 times a week if we can. Just take them down, give them a look. Just work on stuff with them.
What do you think the main benefit, or one of the few benefits of that are?
Oh, just getting control, I think, Dan. Because it's repetitive. Like, if you're trying to get a stop on a dog or trying to get sides on a dog, you can't do it overnight. It's something that you just got to keep working at, and being repetitive on it, and being strong on it. Making that dog do what you're wanting it to do. But then I always say I have a few people come out, wanting to train dogs and stuff, and they'll put a pup in there, a young pup, and they'll work it here, and they'll say, go back and come over and, to a 6-month-old pup. And it's like, it doesn't understand you, let it work, and only work it for a short amount of time. Because if you're out there, back over, and you're trying to make this pup do a heap of stuff, and it gets tired, it starts doing stupid stuff, and then you've gone backwards 10 paces. Whereas if you go out, you get your round and your back and all that, and then you might walk out and you might stop it and then quit. If you quit on a good note, you're always going to go ahead. But you work that pup too long, and you're going to just start undoing all sorts of stuff.
Question here from Danny Kerr. I'm having trouble with getting or teaching my dogs to back. What can I do to teach or encourage them?
Yeah, backing's a good one. And same as before, some dogs naturally do it, some dogs don't. I'll use Fred as a bit of an example. Fred never liked backing. And I used to ask Jake all the time, I'm like, how do I get this dog to back? And he said to me there one day, he said, just pull him up on a couple at the back, pull him up on one or two, pat him, make him, that's all good, and then let him go back along it. So then you pull him up again, and this is over a fair period of time. So you're pulling the dog up, but then you're letting the dog run back along the sheep. Yeah. So by the time you've done that, over a couple of weeks, all of a sudden you're at the front, you've pulled him up, led him up the front, and then you've let him go, and he's run back along the sheep under his own demise. And the next minute he's gone, oh, I'm doing this by myself. And yeah, he just clicked like that. And now Fred will back up into the shearing shed miles. So it does work.
Tracy Haskell has asked, do you put any control or manners on your dogs away from stock, or do you do it all when you're on sheep?
Hey Trace, she's overseas, international. Yeah, no, I do all mine on sheep. I'm a bit useless when it comes to, teaching a pup to lead and, all that sort of stuff. Like all the boys are up me all the time. I usually grab a pup out of the cage and walk down with it and then just let it go and run amok and then try and catch it and put it back. So I've always stood by that. I find, and don't get me wrong, people do this and they get great results. I just find for me, teaching a pup to sit and stay and come and all that stuff and teaching it to lead too early, I just find takes that natural instinct out of them. I want to try and keep as much of that natural instinct as I can. And when a pup gets to 10, 12 months old, that's when I'll start really, putting a stop on, calling off stock. Calling off stock's a very hard one. Because you're trying to get it to, come to you away from the stock, and then you're trying to get it to work. So, but yeah, I definitely do all my, like Mena's stuff, Mena's like barking the cage and that you've got to discipline that off stock, obviously. But still I try and discipline that so that it's not me, like I'll, throw a rock on the roof or whatever, because if you physically go and, up that pup, well, he's going to know you're doing it, and then you take it down the yards and you're trying to get it to bark in the back of a race. So it's very hard, that one. But yeah, I do a lot of my stuff on sheep, definitely.
Another question from Natalie Grimmer. How does training a dog for sheep differ to training a dog for cattle? Would you use different methods to fine tune your dogs for different stock?
Not really. I had this question the other day, and yeah, I don't usually start my dogs on cattle till they're, 18 months. I just find, with them tougher bull-fed dogs that just want to get in and do stuff, you put them on cattle for the first time and they'll fly in and they'll grab something by the head and they'll get stomped and you're pretty much going to bugger it. You're going to break a leg or something. So I usually, by the time I start my dogs on cattle, usually they got the foundation of, back and over and sit and walk in. But all that's the same then, you got to be able to steer your dog around, and obviously, probably the different command is get hold of him. But yeah, it's all the same. And I have had dogs back cattle before too, so it's very similar.
What's your take on feel in a dog?
Yeah, I think you've got to have it. That's one thing, that I've probably, some of my dogs have probably lacked a little bit. But yeah, you've got to have that feel, that natural ability. Because if you're just steering the dog around and, it's relying on you to put it in the right spot. Well, you're going to end up in all sorts when you get on lambs or something like that. So yeah, definitely got to have, feel, especially for stock. Whether it be in the trial ring or out in a paddock, you've definitely got to have feel.
A lot of people have got different opinions on feel. Have you got a particular?
What is it to you?
What's it to you?
Well, feel for me is feel for stock, and giving that distance when they need to, coming in when they need to. It's just that natural ability to get the job done. Yeah.
Nice and easy, mate. You smashed it.
Do you think it's something that comes like with their genetics, or something?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's bred in a lot of dogs. I've had pups that have got heaps of it, and I've had pups that have got none of it. So, and from the same litters. So it's not all genetic, but I guess it's got to be there somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, to be honest. And you can't. Well, if you're a real good trainer, you might be able to train it in them. But I don't think you can train stuff like feel and natural ability.
Not real feel.
No, that's right.
Question from Nikki West. What are your thoughts when running a school? Do you find yourself teaching both how to train a dog as well as training the people there to learn about positioning and reading the stock?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and this is not, putting down anyone that comes to my dog schools, but I'm always telling people it's not, I reckon it's 80% them that are in the wrong spot, or just don't quite know where to position themselves to work the dog. So yeah, a lot of dog schools, I think everyone that goes to them probably learn more of where to position themselves and how to read stock and how to work your dog. Yeah, I think that's why I have a lot of people say, can you take a dog for me and train it and rah, and I'm like, no, you bring your dog out and I'll train you to help and train that dog. Because that's, you can come and get buy a trained dog off me, but if you don't know how to position and how to work it, well, it's not going to be much use to you.
100%, mate. We appreciate everything you've given us for training there as well, mate. You've got pretty decent a lot of stuff there. We might just be curious at the time there. We might get onto a bit of trialing, mate. How long have you been trialing?
Yeah, like I said before, I think 2014 was my first year. Andrew King, when I was at Romani, he's like, "Come on, you got to go." And I'm like, "Mate, Lucy was only 8 months old at the time," and we entered one. We went down to Wagga, and old Lucy come out and got a 99 in the encourage, and then I think she won another encourage pretty much straight up. So I was up with the big wigs, and I won a few early on, but then I don't know whether I got a bit cocky and it just went once I started sort of getting into them better classes that and it gives you a reality check and makes you have a bit of a think. But yeah, I was a bit lucky, I guess, because I had Andrew. I had fellas like Bill Luff and Graham Cooper. Graham Cooper actually gave me Lucy's mother and Rose, Lou's sister, to trial because I only had Lucy and Wes when I started out. And I was very fortunate to be able to trial them. They were both open bitches that Cooper had won before. I went and won the Open Championship at the Canberra Royal with Lou, and that was in my first year of trialing. So that was a bit of an eye opener. Having that start with guys like that was unreal. And then obviously it just went from there, and I just sort of sat back and watched everyone trial and how they did it. All them older fellas that just do it bloody with their hands behind their back and do it easily. And once I sort of got Jock and then a few others, it got very addictive.
So why do you trial?
I guess at first I think it was got addictive. It was fun. You go and catch up with mates. I think now it's still that. It's still fun, and you go and catch up with mates, and you have a catch up and stuff, have a chat. But it's getting away from the farm too. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people, working on a property. It gets a bit, it's obviously great sitting at home with the wife and kids, and, I take the kids to work with me all the time. So I'm pretty lucky when it comes to that. But just getting away from the farm and, because you've got numbers going through your head and you're like, oh, have I done this right? Have I done that? I've got to mark lambs next week or whatever. So just going away on a weekend, take your dogs. And I guess, I don't tune my dogs up a lot, but I do like to, give them a bit of a run. If they're working, like if I went to a trial next week, they'd go unreal because they've been shearing and weaning for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I find that's when the dogs trial best, when they're real tired because they're actually listening to you. But yeah, I think it's a lot to do with that, getting away from your workplace, or for me anyway, and catching up with people and having a yarn. Yeah.
That's okay. And do you have a particular format of trialing that you prefer?
Oh mate, I love them all.
I know you'll have a crack at anything.
Hey.
I was going to say, I know you'll have a crack at anything. Where's your sweet spot?
Obviously, yard trialing is my favourite.
Yeah.
Then obviously, I love cattle trialing. I love utilities, and I love having a crack at 3 sheep. I've never gone much chop at 3 sheep. I think Jock won a novice at Gundagai once. But usually, like I said, them stronger dogs that have got a bit of presence. You can't get your dogs off far enough. So, but yeah, definitely, I'd love to see more. There's a few of these stock dog challenges coming up where they're doing, like Ado's doing one down south, like what Maddie and Chris used to run, the USD. And obviously we were just at Carcoar that had the yard trial and the cattle trial. That to me is my ultimate trial, to have a yard trial and cattle trial at the same event. Yeah, it's great. A lot of people probably don't do both events, but there's a fair few of us that get in and have a crack for sure.
Speaking about Carcoar, mate, you're fairly successful there on the weekend. You want to tell us why you entered Jock into the size shootout?
Probably got
Congratulations
lucky,
as well.
Probably got a bit lucky, but no, I actually spoke to Josh, the fella that was running it, and he asked me to put Jock in the size shootout, and I said, I wouldn't mind putting Fred in it. Young up and comer, give Fred a crack at it, rah. And he's like, oh, but you got the dog in the sale that's by Jock, so obviously that's how that came around. So that's why I put him in it, and yeah, I'm glad I did because they got pretty tough. Obviously the first few runs had trouble getting off the truck, and so I just went out there and even when mine were on the truck, they were laying down in the middle all balled up, and I'm like, how the heck am I going to get these things off? And and it probably a few nose bites probably might have cost me a few points, but they come off. So yeah, I was very happy when they come off, and then I just Jock done his job the rest of the way around. So yeah.
Congratulations once again.
Thanks, mate.
So Nick Foster has asked, what do you think has had the most influence on yard trialing to make it what it is today, and why?
That's a hard question. I guess it's just it's the people that make it up. The people that organise. You go to a trial and I think we all take it for granted. We go to a trial and we run our sheep around, and we might go, oh gee, the sheep are tough, or gee, that was tough, or whatever, that truck was tough, but you don't sort of look at what goes behind the scenes. I've sort of run a few trials. I usually run Harden, and I'm running Yass now. I've moved here, and there's a lot goes into setting up, and there's a lot of behind the scenes. But it's just great that people can put these things on, and then we can all go there and have a yarn, and all have a bit of a crack at each other and trial a few dogs. So
that's a go. And there's another part to Nick's questions, and who do you think's been most influential to yard trialing and to make it is what it is today as well?
Oh, that's a hard one. I guess you go back, all them years, Chris Stapleton, he's a magician at that type of stuff. He can go in there and, cruise around, and you think he hasn't lost a point yet. And, you know, there's things going wrong, but he just fixes it. And, you know, Kevy Howe, like Kevy's the same. He'll fly around, and he's a hard one. I've judged Kevy a few times, and he's a hard one to get points off. So yeah, no, you know, them old fellas that give it a crack. But I love going and watching, you know, fellas like Jake and Dean Incher and Matty, and you know, they really get in and have a crack, and you know, they'd rather punch them round than try and worry about losing points. So there's a bit of that as well.
Adam James has asked, is there one particular trial that you'd like to win?
That's a good one coming from him. I'd love to win a Kelpie trial or something, or an Australian yard. But yeah, no, look, probably it's always hard. Obviously, I'd love to win, you know, an Australian or a New South. But I just love, the biggest thing for me is going to a trial where the sheep are tough and you're up against everyone, you know, like, you know, all the really good trialers are there and they're having a crack, and, you know, it's like, holy crap, like, you know, it's not like, oh, someone's having a bad day, so I'll go out and have a crack and I'll, you know, get lucky. But yeah, no, I just really want to go and win a really tough trial. Yeah.
Mark Mangold has asked, in relation to trialling, what ratio of points do you think are lost by the handler compared to the dog? And what's the best advice you can offer to a new trialer to keep the loss of points under control?
Yeah, mate, it's ratio would be, you know, 70-30 handler, you know, probably more. And I know myself, even to this day, like, I still lose more points than my dogs probably. And Mark, you know, we've done that bit of a school there at Sydney with, you know, with the trialing, with points and judging and stuff. And that's a big one. Like, you know, you put your dog in the wrong position, or, you know, you walk off the line before they're across it, or, you know, there's a whole lot involved. And I guess yard trialing, I wish it'd stay a little bit positive. You know, sometimes it can get technical. You know, people will take points for, you know, stuff that it's like, well, hang on, you know, that you probably didn't have to take points for that. But yeah, it's, you know, and that's the way it is. You know, you got to get points off where you get them. But yeah, I like to see real positive trials that, you know, that the dog that gets in and does the job is the one that's going to come out at the end and win it.
Where do you believe people struggle with trialing, and where can they improve?
Probably that, Dan. Like, you know, I guess a big one for me is, you know, learning how to read sheep. That's a big one. Like, you go to a lot of these trials, and, you know, you might get stuck in a truck or in a draft, and I still get stuff. I can, you know, I still get stuck. I can read sheep pretty well, but sometimes it doesn't work. But I think if you can, you know, get in and learn how to read the sheep, you know, you can usually position your dog, you know, without going, you know, crazy and backing and barking. Sometimes just bringing that dog up the side, leaving it on the ground, and it just creates that flow. And, you know, like Lucy's a good one for that. I always come back to her. You know, Jock will get up there and bark and grab heads, and whereas Lucy will just poke up the side and just get in that right spot and create that flow every time. So without upsetting the stock.
Spoken about Lucy a lot tonight. Is she the only dog you've ever run a 99 with?
Definitely, mate. I don't
Well, that answers the earlier question. Who's your best dog?
Yeah. Well, it'd have to be. You know, like I said, and Lucy's a great work dog too. That a lot of people don't realise that. You know, when I was at Romani, she'd load B doubles of lambs. Just she'd fly up in the front, come back, and even, you know, I've used her this week shearing, and she loves it. But yeah, she's unreal for me when it comes to trialing. I've won championships with her. I've won big trials. I've probably stuffed her up. You know, I've been in a couple of Australians and been pretty close to it. I think West Wyalong one year I was leading going into the top 25 by a fair way, and then I went in and I just couldn't get the draft, and it's heartbreaking. But yeah, mate, she's unreal. She, some trials don't suit her, but she'll go in and she won't upset a stock, and she just gets it done.
And it's not only you that she gives 100% to either at work or trialing, but Claire does pretty well with her as well.
Yeah, mate. The kids love trialing her and Jock, and it's great. It's great to see, and hopefully once this COVID buggers off, hopefully we can get the kids back into it.
He's definitely one dog I like to stop and watch. Just
Yeah.
floats around them and creates movement quietly and gets the job done.
Yeah.
In your time, have you noticed a change in the way people handle stock and dogs away from trialing?
Probably not. I think this day and age, we're probably. Oh, I shouldn't say that, because you get them older fellas that they've handled stock the same all their life. But I guess fellas like me, and you probably get better. You'd hope you'd get better handling stock, and obviously some of us go out there and we bloody do our nana, and when things aren't going our way, and it's like, come on, like, it's so frustrating. But no matter how much you bloody moan and cry, it's not going to change. So sometimes you got to go at it like Lucy and just poke in there, and other times you got to go in and bloody go hard. So and that's why I love trialing, because I can go to a trial and some of my dogs don't suit sheep at all, but then you go to the next trial and you might bloody win everything. So it's that's the way it goes.
Do you have a favourite trial to participate in?
Probably not necessarily. Like I said, just them tough ones. Cootamundra show trial is always a good one. It's always really tough, really tight truck, and I think one year in the Open there, out of 45 dogs, I think 5 or 6 may have got around. Trials like that where it's it's tough for everyone. They're the ones. And Henty, Henty's always a good tough trial. Yeah.
So Kieran Wild asked here, is there a dog away from trialing that has sparked your interest? It's hard because they're not on show, so you don't really get to see them. But is there something been floating about?
Yeah, I've actually just recently. I've seen this dog a while ago, and people have told me about him. But there's a dog called Fernley Percy of Ross Gilmore's, and I actually went over and seen Ross and watched this dog work, and he's pretty old now, so he's probably not like he was back in his heyday. But and I've seen dogs by him, and yeah, I really like him. And Ross has got no interest in trialing at all. So he's a dog that you never see. Yeah, there's plenty of dogs around, mate, that obviously you just don't see at a trial, and you might go and you see it work somewhere and you think, far out. Like Jesse Beavis at Romani, he had that Kingsley Frank. I think he might have trialled him at Harden one year or something, but he was just a workaholic. He'd back a race for miles, and Jesse would be up him all day, and he'd go all day. So there is them dogs out there, and obviously they don't get the trials all that much. Yeah.
What do you feel is your best achievement so far?
I guess going away from trialing, I guess, is probably just being where I am with the dogs. Getting breeding dogs that I getting the point in breeding dogs that I like and that I'm getting on with. But I guess trialing. Winning that thing up at Tamworth, the Stock Dog Spectacular, that was pretty schmick. Obviously, it was pretty good prize money. So, but same thing. Like a lot of the good blokes were there, and just winning a few. I won the Open Championship at West Wyalong one year. That was pretty. That was with Lucy, up against a lot of them good competitors. But like I said before, Yeah, just going to them tough trials and having the dogs do well is my main thing.
You've mentioned Andrew King a few times and a couple of, the of trialers of great caliber. Who's inspired you?
Yeah, definitely Andrew. Like I said, he's the one that got me started in the probably sheepdog industry. And he's helped me a lot with my trialing. He's won plenty of trials himself back in the day, and he's a very good judge. And he still, I've been gone from Romani for 5 or 6 years now, and he still rings me every couple of months just to see how I'm going, how the family is, and we still talk dogs. I think he rang me last week, asking me a question about dogs. So yeah, he's been a big part.
How many conversations would you have a day that don't involve dogs?
Probably not many, Dan.
Yeah.
Probably not many. You sort of, and I guess you get like that a bit. You go away to a dog trial. We only had this conversation the other day. I think me and Maddie Sherwood were talking about it, and you go to a dog trial and you're sitting around the bar and you start, you're talking dogs and it's like, why don't we talk about something else for once, So yeah.
Is there something else to talk about?
Well, I don't know.
Except kids.
So. I guess it's just one of them things.
Yeah.
Is there a message you'd like to get out of the livestock and working dog industry?
I guess like just for people to get out and have a crack. Get out and have a go, whether it be at work or trialing, and don't be afraid to ask people for help. There's a lot of blokes out there. Like I said, I've always asked. Billy Luff and Andrew King and all them. Jake, like Matty. You can ask anyone. Ask anyone for help and like I've done a few dog schools now, and I always say to people, you come here to this dog school, you don't want to get your whole training regime from this. You want to take one little thing out of this that's going to work for you, and you put it to work, and then you go and take one little thing from someone else, and and that's pretty much what I've done. I've taken little bits and pieces from everyone, and made it work for me. But yeah, get out and have a crack, and don't be afraid to talk to people about dogs.
Chris Jurek has asked, who's the handler you look up to and why do they stand out to you?
That's a good one. I guess, like I said, it probably all comes back to Andrew. I've seen Andrew go out there with that trooper. He'll go out there when everyone's having a prick of a time and everything's tough, and the way he works that dog and puts him in spots and and very quietly, obviously a lot quieter than me. Obviously there's people out there, Dean Incher will go out there and he's got a unreal pack of dogs, and they're my type of dogs. Like when Dean comes out, that he's going to have something that'll put him around. He'll go out there and he'll just punch him around. And, Jeff McDougall, like, he's been going great guns lately. And, I've seen him at Carcoar and he's got that young dog there. He calls it up and then he's up it to go back. And it's like, slow down. And,
is that Champ?
Yeah.
I like him.
And like, Jeff comes out and his heart rate's bloody pumping. I just like the blokes that'll just go out and have a crack and really make it work. Yeah.
Got another question here. What do you see as the biggest challenge in the working dogs in Australia going forward? Backyard breeding, government regulations, costs?
It's always hard. I'm obviously part of the New South Wales Yard Dogs, and we get all this stuff all the time, with animal welfare and all that, and it's so hard. It's obviously we've got to be careful. It's a bit disappointing that we've got to be watching what we're doing all the time, but yeah, I really hope it does stay put, because I'd hate to see our industry go down the gurgler because someone took a video of a dog ripping a sheep's head off or whatever. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's one that frustrates me a lot. Because at work, it's at a trial, it's bad to see. But at work, mate, you get them big Dorset Rams or them big Crosser Utes, and sometimes they need a bit of stropping. Otherwise, they just bash the crap out of your dogs and yourself. So, it's always hard. But yeah, we've just got to be careful these days, and that's the only way we're going to be able to keep our industry going.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And, mate, is there anything you'd like to see introduced to Dog Talk, or is there anything that you think we could bring to the table differently or change around a bit?
Not really, dude. I think you've got it bloody down pat. Like this thing here, when you first asked me about this, I was like, oh, don't bring me on it, but I think it's great. I think, what you're doing with this, it's unreal. It's getting, everyone's got different opinions on dogs. I think it's unreal. The magazine, Lauren, she was going great guns, and you guys have took over that and kept it going really good. But yeah, I think, just keep doing these, and just keep buddy. Like Paul Rose said last week, maybe interview a few people at trials or something.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Yeah.
We'll have to pick the ones that aren't rainy.
Yeah, that's it.
That was actually our intent last week, was to speak to a few people. The rain and the cold kind of scared us away, or scared me away from a few people.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there anyone you'd like to see us do a Q&A with?
Probably Andrew King. He, like I said, he's been a big part of my thing, and I think he'd have a lot. To give back to. He's probably a bit of a shy kind of a bloke, but I think if you got him on this and got him talking, I think you'd get a fair bit out of him. Yeah.
Awesome, mate. So at that point of the night, mate, who do you believe asked the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro dog food?
Who asked the question about like the training between the dogs and the cattle and sheep?
Going back now.
Was it Nat?
No, I don't think it was actually. It was Carl Schubert.
There you go, that one.
There you go, Carl. Get in contact with us, Carl, and we'll get Enduro to shoot a bag of high energy
working dog food.
Working dog food to you. I was going to read a little bit there about kangaroo there, but I flipped my page over. So that's cool.
Thank you to all of our listeners tonight. Appreciate you all jumping on, and of course you, Ben, for your time. It's
no worries.
Q&A. Last question: would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
Mate, this has been racking on my mind. I was asking on the end of everything, and I really don't. Probably the one big duck, because I'd sold Wes into it.
Good old Wes.
Big Wes a crack, because he pulled sheep down for me at work when they're fly struck. So big Wes would handle it.
Oh, well, there we go. Mate, Ben, thanks again for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all our viewers out there. And please remember, the day we stop to learn will be a sad day for all of us.
Good on you guys. Well done.
Thank you.
Cheers, mate.